TFRW and TCRRA are your concerns, give them an honorary status with their presidency. Thank you.
Mr. Garcia, you're recognized.
Yes, I'd like to speak against, as I mentioned earlier, is a separate, more privileged staff auxiliaries. Unlike auxiliaries, if you are designated a partner, you have that status in perpetuity. Unlike auxiliaries, which every cycle.
Right there.
Okay. We are creating tiered levels of affiliation with RPT. We are granting, and this is a privilege, I don't know why they keep saying, they are granting a privilege that's not granted to auxiliaries. And I understand we want to create an official distinction for TRCCA and TFRW. I think the previous speaker had a better solution to this. But we are creating a privileged status for people who will keep their status in perpetuity, unlike the auxiliaries. So why are we giving that to TFRW and TRCCA and not Texas Young Republicans or any of the other auxiliaries? And two, if an auxiliary wanted to become a partnership other than the original two, what additional hoops do they have to jump through? For example, if Texas Young Republicans wanted to move from auxiliary to partnership, in other words, have their status in perpetuity, what additional hoops do they have to jump through? And if they are not granting that status, we're creating conflict and points of friction between these organizations. This, as I said, this makes all the problems that we've talked about in the past with auxiliaries, this makes it worse. We're going in the wrong direction, not the right direction. The chairman of TRCCA is a member of the SREC. Half the SREC, or a third of you, or whatever, are county chairs. The TRCCA has a strong relationship with RPT, so does TFRW. If we need to make them ex officio members, honorary members, we can do that. Let's not create distinctions and tiered levels of affiliation within RPT. So I urge you to vote against this partnership.
Mr. Wiley, you recognize?
Yes, David Wiley, SD12. As I've also spoken here on this many times today,
please keep sidebar conversations to a minimum.
This is not an effort to tier, to show preference or anything such as that. As it turns out, the TFRW is truly for 20 years working on conventions. Anytime I need help, I call the TFRW and I got 100 ladies down there, ready to put the convention on. The County Chair Association provides very these organizations are what we can count on being there to say that we don't need to review them every 2 years. Honestly, young Republicans, by their very nature, are going to change. Federation, they change every 4 years, we hope. Other organizations, they come and they go. They need to be reviewed every 2 years. But the TFRW and the TCCRA are some of our and I'm not trying to cast aspersions on anybody else by saying they're lesser or a lesser tier. We're just simply trying to move forward, and I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. Ms. Coons?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Coons, SD. This is my status. This is my status thing we're doing, okay? This is an accommodation. It's an accommodation. As it was so eloquently put by Sean, TFRW has in their bylaws, they're not allowed to be an auxiliary or coalition. So does TRCCA. Anything from us. We need to include these groups into our auxiliaries and coalition committee, and we ask respectfully that you please consider that. TFRW is our powerhouse. We all know that, but it goes without saying. In fact, the majority of these women in this room, I believe, are TFRW members. So, I mean, we do have TFRW. We want to make it they have to have a seat at our table. My goodness. They are incredibly important to us in our mission. And again, it's about growing the party, sir. So thank you. I hope you'll all consider.
Does this status give them the ability to address the body of the association? I think yes, but I believe that they already have the ability to address this body. We just saw the members from the college Republicans address the body, and also young Republicans address the body. Yes, Ms. Jones.
Mr. Chairman, Grace Jones, SD20, speaking in favor. As an active member of the TFRW, for whatever reason, relationships between TFRW and the chair have evolved in the past, and we've made great strides in improving those relationships. However, it allows status as an over 10,000 member strong organization, the largest organization in Texas. This gives us an avenue to continue to participate whether or not some situation like that were to take place. Again, we do need some. It's not a status symbol. It is simply an avenue, another avenue to get to the same end result, that we can continue to coordinate, cooperate, and work together with the Republican Party of Texas. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Covey, you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David Covey, SD3, and I'm going to speak in favor of this. We've voted twice now to go along with Pastor Brody's plan. So let's go ahead, let's have the plan out, let's vote forward. The only thing I would note is that, as the TRCCA, we want to work with the SREC more and more. We want to work with other auxiliaries. I was back here, we were talking with the college Republicans. And I think to some extent, all of those auxiliaries not having to up every 2 years. Once we make them an auxiliary, if they're still have their same principles, I don't know why they would have to go re-up every 2 years as well. So while I think it's certainly help us, this should have to do that as well. So while I think this goes in the right direction, and I do support it, I think that we can go further in benefiting and making this even stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Covey. Ms. Thomas, you recognize?
President Thomas, SD23. I love them. They are, if you have young children and you want them to get involved in party politics, you take them to TFRW. This has nothing to do, that has nothing to do with what I'm going to do next. Can you scroll it down to the title? Okay, but Mr. Chairman, I move that we strike partnerships, auxiliaries, and coalitions and insert the word affiliate, because that's what the RNC uses, and we can all be at one level, all of us can be at one level.
Miss, Ms. Thomas, are you going to remove your motion?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move, I'd strike that because it didn't get a second. So I move that we strike auxiliaries and coalitions. Make it all partners.
Is there a second to that motion? Second. Okay, there is a motion, and it has been seconded to just use the word partnerships and strike auxiliaries and coalitions. Or is there a debate on this motion? Mr. Cheever? No?
Point of information. So this is just a title change. It doesn't change the text throughout the bylaws. Is that correct?
You have to ask the presenter of the motion.
Yes, that will have to come later.
Okay.
So now I'm going to speak to my motion. They can't evidently be an auxiliary or an affiliate, but they can be a partner. So it depends on our bylaws what a partner is. So we can craft
Please
this.
keep your sidebar conversations to a minimum, please.
So we can craft this so that all of the groups are seen as equal and valuable, because really, you know, the YRs, and that's a good example, they are powerhouses. And they are just as valuable as a TFRW. They are powerhouses. They you know, and we don't want, and to say that a group that has less people in it is less important to us, I think is, because, you know, we need to grow them and appreciate their value. So that's why I said we all put them at one level, and I know there's going to have to be some cleanup through it, and we can do that in three months. But I think that because this is just semantics, we should not put one group over another group in our partnerships.
You recognize Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chairman, Steve Evans, SD28. I rose to speak on the main question, but I'd like to hold my place in line. This doesn't fix anything. Striking this language, TFRW can still not be a partnership. Can you be a partnership? We have another equitable solution for this, but this drastically changes the text of this bylaw amendment. I don't think it's something the floor can consider. It needs some more work. I ask that we vote this down. I'd like to speak on the main question in a moment with an equitable solution.
I'd like to speak in favor of the original intent of the original amendment.
Yeah, you're out of order. You have to speak on this.
Okay, then, speaking to this, college Republicans, I stood up here to...
Please, sidebars.
I just stood up here 30 minutes ago, argued that we want to remain recognized and we value that recognition. I believe it would not be fair to withhold that from TRCCA and Republican women. So, college Republicans, we would have no problem with all being equal in their partnership. However, I believe that just changing the name of the committee on the top to partnerships doesn't solve the issue of partnerships only having to apply once and not be re-upped, and then auxiliaries and everybody else having to be re-upped. And from what I hear, that is where the point of contention is. I would suggest then that everybody becomes a partner. Once you're in, you don't have to be re-upped. You'd be removed, but you don't have to come back every 2 years.
Thank you. Mr. Wiley?
We're obviously deep in the weeds. I move that we commit this back to the Rules Committee to have it discussed further relative to this amendment and see if they can't come up with exactly how they...
There's now a motion on the floor that we take this bylaw amendment and refer it back to the Rules Committee to work on it and come back with the right language. Is there any debate on that motion? Are you ready for the question? Yes. The question on the floor is to take this change of a bylaw amendment, changing the language of partnerships and auxiliaries and coalitions, and refer refer it back to the Rules Committee for them to look at refining this language as a bylaw amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? I'm confused. The ayes have it. This bylaw amendment will be referred back to the Rules Committee. Is there any further new business? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Hope, you're recognized.
Janice Holt, SD3. I would like to move that we suspend the rules so that I may bring forward the resolution.
Yeah. Then a motion to suspend the rules to discuss a resolution. It has been seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? Ms. Holt?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to, I would like to bring forth a resolution. I'll put on my teacher voice. Mr. Chairman, Janice Holt, SD3. Ma'am? Oh,
Ma'am.
sorry.
Ma'am. Push up.
I would like to present the following resolution for consideration. Whereas Texas, unlike many of the states, require a permit for legally owned handguns to be carried outside of limited areas such as one's home and vehicle. Whereas criminals do not follow the law and the permit requires disarming their victims. Whereas based on evidence from our state and other states, a permit requirement does not make people safer. Whereas Texas should join the growing number of states who recognize constitutional carry, meaning that the Constitution is our permit to carry. Therefore resolved, the State Republican Executive Committee of the Republican Party of Texas supports HB 1238 and HB 2900, currently pending in the House Committee on Homeland Security and Public Safety, where anyone who legally possesses a handgun should be able to carry it open or concealed without a permit while maintaining licensing as optional for purposes. Upon passage of this resolution, we request that it be distributed to all House and Senate members of the 87th Texas Legislature.
It is moved and seconded that the amendment as projected be adopted. Is there any debate on this resolution?
I would like to speak in favor of it. I'd like to speak to the resolution. The reason why this did not come through the resolutions committee was because last evening my state representative James White and I were having a conversation, and he requested that this be brought to the body in order to further support the constitutional carry. He was concerned that Republicans are not getting on board with this. Over 118,000 petitions have been delivered by the Stephen, the name of the group? Texas gun owners, and we want to just add a little muscle to the Texas, the legislative priority on constitutional carry. Thank you.
Ms. Glover, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Chair of the Legislative Priorities Committee, I wholeheartedly support this resolution. If Representative White thinks this will be helpful in passage of this legislation, then I suggest that we as a body adopt this and give him all of the support that he requests. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Covey, you're recognized.
I SD3 completely support it as well, and was able to testify on these bills the other night about 3 a.m. And I think this will support State Representative White, and it'll let the Republicans around the state know that we do support it. So with that, I'll turn it over to
Mr. Breaux, you're recognized.
Chris Breaux, SD4. I call the question.
There's a motion on the floor. It's a call question. Is it a second? nay on this resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The debate is closed. It is moved and seconded that the amendment as projected be adopted. Are you ready for the question? Yes. All in favor of the resolution will vote with their voting pad. Press 1A if you are in favor. Press 2. What? I was on the roll. Press 2B if you are opposed. Press 3C if you are abstaining. The vote is open. Chair recognizes Ms. Jones.
Mr. Chairman, hang on. Oh. We're ready for lunch. Can I move that we recess and hold new business off at 12:45?
I think this is the last bit of new business, and then we will have announcements and we will ask for adjournment.
There's more.
Okay. Ms. Jones, this will be our last new business before lunch.
Mr. Chair, Grace Jones, SD20, I move that we suspend the party's Gab account and refrain from any future participation in the platform.
Is there a second? Is there so moved that the Republican Party of Texas suspends its social media Gab account?
I'd like to speak to my motion. First of all, I have the utmost respect for our chair and his staff, and this is in no way meant as a disrespect to your judgment. However, I do disagree on this particular issue. As a firm believer in free speech, I believe every American citizen has a right to express their ideas no matter how controversial they are. However, it is the responsibility of this party to ensure that our values are being promoted by our accounts on any platform in which we participate. For those of you who don't know, there has been a plethora of extremely vulgar, racist, and anti-Semitic comments on our party's Gab account. We, the SREC, have been informed that it is not possible to delete comments or block users on this platform. I believe that as a party that proudly stands for family values, I should not be concerned to have my 13-year-old near me when reading our party's social media posts. As for free speech, every user on Gab will be free to comment or post on personal accounts and platforms with or without our party's participation. However, let's please ensure that we as a party are setting the narrative and communicating our values on every platform in which we participate. Thank you.
Mr. Broad, you recognize?
Mr. Chairman, do we have a printed copy of the resolution?
Of the resolution
No, sir.
that just passed?
Of this one?
No, we don't. It's just a motion.
I'd like to, well, first I would like to make an amendment that if we don't have a copy.
Can't hear you. Could you?
Sorry.
It's just a
Okay,
motion.
no problem. I'll speak against it. Mr. Chairman, I'm a free speech absolutist. If I don't want to listen to what you have to say, I will walk away. I am not in favor of limiting anyone else's speech. And the people who are nasty, racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe, whatever on Gab, they need to hear Republican values too. They need to hear it more than we need to hear it. If we start shutting out Gab, that's run by a conservative Christian, Gab, which has 800,000 registered Republicans on the platform, we start shutting them out, when are we going to talk about Twitter? Twitter's got some nasty people on it. It's the sewer of the internet. When are we going to talk about Facebook? When are we going to talk about Parler? There's bad stuff all over the internet. Maybe if we're gonna kick Gab or we're gonna get off Gab, maybe we need to get the Republican Party completely off the internet. Because our kids might see porn, or they might see Nazis, or they might see something else on the internet. We can't start backing away and retreating from social media outlets. That is the frontier. That is the front line of the battle. We have to fight the battle where the battle's happening. We can't just sit back here where we're safe. We've got to be where the enemy is. That's Gab, that's Twitter, that's Facebook, that's Parler, that's YouTube, that's Google. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Garcia?
I'm also speaking against the resolution. Ideally, it would be preferable if we could moderate responses to our posts on Gab, but for whatever reason, Gab has taken an absolutist free speech approach, which may be understandable. But there's two important things to keep in mind here. One, we are responsible for what we post, okay? We are not responsible for what any other random user on Gab posts, okay? Stop feeling like we have to apologize for what any other random people who use Gab post. We are responsible for our posts, okay? And we were posting about, we posted about our conservative values. We were posting about, the earlier Republican Party being founded by African Americans. That is great stuff. And we should post on Gab and any other platform. The second point I will make, take a step back here. We all know there is a concerted effort to delegitimize every alternative platform. Not only are we being censored on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, they are trying to delegitimize not just Gab, but Parler. They kicked Parler off their web host server, okay? Substack. There is a coordinated attack to demonize anyone who uses those platforms. If we suspend our account, be seen not just as an attack on Gab, but as to delegitimize the platform. And it will then be used against every one of you who has a Gab account. It will say, wow, even the Republican Party of Texas thinks Gab is racist. So why are you on Gab? They will, after we suspend, they will come after every one of you who might be using Gab, okay? That is the strategy. Now, I don't know if Gab is a viable platform for the future. Maybe there'll be a new platform that comes along. If they say Trump may start a platform. I don't know what the alternative is, but let's not participate in the left's effort to shut down all other platforms.
Ms. Robertson, you recognize?
Tanya Robertson, SD11. I agree. I'm in opposition of this motion. I just went on my Gab account and showed my counterpart how you can delete, hide, or block a comment from a person. So it does have those mechanisms. If you're offended by something, by all means do that. But I'm in favor of free speech also.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Precure?
Carol Precure, SD31. I am also speaking against this. I do not do social media, and I was made aware of the Gab issue, and so I went ahead and for the first time got on social media and read through some of the posts that were being made that people were concerned with. I was appalled at some of the vitriol directed towards our vice chair, and in not having time to comment, I simply just ignored all of it. We've just got to recognize that there are idiots out there that are going to post things that we're not going to like. They're going to say things that offend us, and we have the option to ignore them. But we have seen with Twitter, Facebook, and some of these, our values have been blocked. Our president was blocked, and I think that with a platform that does allow peace and doesn't block people, we're going to see a lot of our values espoused upon this platform. And I did see some areas where people are talking about the values that we do believe in, a lot of our legislative issues and things like that. And we've got to allow that platform to be there, and we've got to get our message out. And I think that this allows us to get our message out to those that that believe in us. And even though we may not agree with a lot of the things that people do say, they're still Republicans. And we've got to be in the focal point for these people as well.
Thanks, sir. Any further? Chairwoman Pena-Garza,
Do I have permission to speak, sir?
you are recognized.
Okay, I'm not for or against, I just kind of wanted to show a different side. In Hidalgo County, I run the Twitter, the Facebook, and the Instagram, and I'm all for free speech. But I do know there's a concerted effort by plants of the Democratic Party. So if you were to post, because I don't have a Gab, right, but I did see screenshots. So if you were to post on Gab, and somebody was to say, pretend to be Republican, and say something racist, or pretend to, so they're trying to mess with the perception of who we are to discredit our movement, and you can't erase it. I erase trolls and block them for fun, and I don't care what anyone says. If I do a post and they're, excuse my language, sir, but crapping on the page to discredit what we're doing, then I'm going to block and erase them because they're fake accounts. And what I've heard is that Gab you can't erase, and I don't think it's about erasing patriots. I think it's about erasing those that are trying to discredit what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further debate?
I wasn't, but I think I will. Steve Evans, SD 28. If someone's using bad language on an airplane, I'm going to call them out if my kids are with me. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for community standards consistent with the church bulletin. I don't think it's unreasonable to hand my phone to my 12-year-old and say, read this. Communications that come from RPT or are involved with shouldn't have that standard. And I'm all for free. Part-time broadcaster, I have faced cancel culture. I have been threatened. I've been told to shut up. We have fought to stay on the air. We have fought to stay relevant. But standards are okay. We have values. Can we not instill those values? This platform doesn't allow us to do that. We don't get to have that filter. We don't get to have those values. We don't get to stand up in the room and say, hey man, don't talk like that in front of my kids, because we can't stop it and we can't take it away. I agree with Rolando. I don't want to kill any platform that we may be able to get a message out. I agree with Chris. I don't want to lose any opportunity to espouse our values. I especially don't want to lose any opportunity to preach the gospel to someone who may need it or commanded to by Scripture. But this is beyond that. This is terrible. How many people in the room actually have a Gab account? Looked at any of this?
I have a Twitter too, and
Well, but Twitter, you can delete it. Twitter, you can change it. You can, hold on. If you can delete these posts, then why haven't you? So if we're not going to do this, then we need to talk about developing standards, and we need to make sure those are communicated to whoever's in charge of our Gab account. We all will get beat up on over this. We all will be told, well, you're racist, or you're anti-Semitic, look at your Gab account. You've done nothing. You've stayed silent. So I don't think this is necessarily a free speech argument. It's more of a community standards and showing people that we are better by that, by insisting better from them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. George, and then Ms. Jones.
Can I make a amendment, and instead of deleting the Gab account, can we monitor the Gab account to a point where there are no issues that are going so crazy that at least our staff or volunteers or somebody is monitoring enough that there is one post, a positive post, then there is 500 negative posts. That's not sending the right message. That's sending the wrong message. So if we have one post from Texas GOP saying, we're going to do this event or something, and there is 300 people below that calling us all kinds of stuff, the majority of the attention is going to the negative post. So we somehow have to figure out a way to manage this instead of deleting it. So if we can do that, if we cannot do that, if we don't have the resources, then it comes down to, well, then you gotta step back.
Just point of information. Do we have the ability to delete comments on our party's posts on the Gab account? That's important.
We don't. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Grove.
Several are saying we don't.
So the way Gab works, the mechanics of Gab, is that you can self-edit what you see. So you can block a person on Gab and you will not see that person on Gab. The Republican Party page can block a person on Gab. The person running the page will not see that person on Gab. All of us will still see all of those responses. You have to go and delete the trolls. You are the editor of Gab. Gab, under Section 230, Gab cannot be the editor of what's posted on Gab. That's up to us. So you hide the troll, maybe they make another account. That's the nature of the beast.
Ms. Glover, you recognize.
Joe Glover, SD12. How many of you followed Donald Trump on Twitter? Raise your hand. If you followed President Trump on Twitter. Okay. I followed him. I looked at the comments. 90% of the comments were negative because they were devoting trolls to his account, trying to distract. But he continued to post and get his message out. The comments did not matter. The comments were not a judgment on the value of his message. I wholeheartedly agree with Tanya and with Chris that we need to continue whatever opportunity we have to get our message out, regardless of the comments. You know, they got people they pay to make comments. They are trying to shut us down, and we need to say no. We had, this past year, we have had enough restriction on our liberties, and we must say stop.
Is there any further debate? Mr. Norrie.
I'll throw it in, just hand it to me. I was recently the target of a cancer culture attack. We had 3,000 negative one-star reviews in the North Law. I had 3 days of people calling my office and saying, "You racist PO." Yes, it was horrible. There was a TikTok outrage generator that lives in Denton, decided to take umbrage at one of our cases. And it was tweeted out 27,000 times. So NORAD Law had to get a TikTok account to respond. I've never been there, but you have to go where you're being defamed. I think that we need to be there. If there's a way of shutting it down as we can, getting more moderators. Maybe everybody in this RNC can moderate, control. You know, we just have to be where the action is, or we are left out of the conversation. And I hate that that's the truth.
Ms. Duke, you recognize.
Debbie Duke, SD 22, and I'd just like to say that, you know, their goal is to cancel us and to cause us to, this is self-censoring and self-canceling. It's just that simple. And I feel like we have to be in there to be in the fight, as ugly as it is.
Are we ready for the question?
Yeah.
Can I speak to this?
Yes. You want to speak from the floor?
Sure. Well, for your never, when it was brought up, been an issue of cancel culture. There's there's probably not a person who's more ardently in support of freedom of speech than I am. What this is not an issue of freedom of speech, and that's not why it was brought up. I think what people have to understand is that businesses and organizations have the ability to choose where they affiliate. And so for the Texas GOP to be there with the types of racist comments we cannot get rid of, that is very damaging to us reaching out to groups doing engagement. And as Chairwoman Peña Garza pointed out, the thing that's so concerning about this is not Democrats attacking our page. It's people who are neo-Nazis, who hate Jews, who hate black people, who are identifying as Republicans, cheering us on. That is the problem. The problem is they are defining themselves underneath our values. Those are not the values of the Republican Party. Those are not the values that we stand for. And by continuing to allow here we have a group of individuals who are blatantly saying things like Jews and ship people back to Africa. And we are allowing that to be under the banner of our name. I stand by my comments that as the vice chair of your organization, we should have absolutely nothing to do with these hateful comments. And if those of you feel it's a free speech issue, you are welcome to keep what you want. It should not have anything to do with those values. Thank you very much.
Is there any further debate?
I just want to point something out, that there is a difference between deciding whether a group should officially belong to our party versus a free speech issue. And so to me, that's apples and oranges. So auxiliaries and coalitions and whether or not somebody affiliates with a party, absolutely we're going to look at our principles. But in terms of free speech and messaging and opportunity to get our message out, regardless of the response. The response doesn't matter. What's important is ability for us to communicate and not lose our voice, especially in this political climate.
Ms. Jones?
So a couple things have been brought up. Let's Trump's Twitter account, for example. Let's keep in mind, obviously I'm familiar with social media. I do IT and I understand how it works. Once again, there's a difference between Gab and Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. You cannot read the comments, you can hide them from yourself, so basically you're doing this. I don't want to see that, but everybody else still sees it. Okay, also, Trump does not have a Gab account, and neither do most of the other, I don't know if there's any other, but as far as I know, no other state parties participate in the platform. 800,000 members of MeWe. And you can delete comments. Join me on MeWe. I'm all about free speech, also about wisdom, also about being smart about how you move forward. Let's weigh the pros. Really, what are the pros of being on Gab? What are we accomplishing that we cannot accomplish elsewhere? These people, like they said, are claiming to support our message. This is not them trying to cancel us. This is us allowing them to have a platform to show affiliation with us. And lastly, if we are okay with having Gab and not monitoring the comments, then are we going to refrain as a party from deleting or blocking users on the other platforms? Because I see that as a double standard. Thank you.
Mr. Bro.
I call the question.
Question's been called in 1 second. Aye. All those opposed? Debate has been ended. The motion on the table is for the Republican Party of Texas to delete its Gab account. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nay. In the vision of the chair, we'll do a division vote. We'll do it by standing. We'll do it by standing. All right, we'll do a roll call vote. We need a motion and for a roll call vote. Second. It's been motioned and seconded to have this vote done by roll call. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We will do this by our clickers. If you are in favor of the motion to delete the Republican Party of Texas, you will vote by using 1B, 1A, 2B, 2B if you're opposed, 3C if you are abstaining. Again, if you're in favor of this motion, it's 1A, 2B if you're opposed, 3C if you're abstaining. Voting is open.
Oh, yeah, but not.
Gary Harper? Gary Harper? No.
Thank you. Just like wandering around. Me too.
It's not unusual to be loved.
The vote will close in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Vote is now closed.
There we go. Ooh, that was close, the closest vote. It's gone. Go get it. Go go.
Let me give this to you because I got to walk back and hand them the silverware if somebody needs it.
All right, y'all, I'm going to end here. Okay, if you need to still find the stream, TXSD25. You can go to TXSD25, that's Karen right here, and she's got Bill Billing. Alright, thanks for watching, y'all. I love you. Alright, bye.
The vote is 35 yeas, 25 nays, 2 abstain. The Republican Party of Texas will eliminate and delete its GAB account. It is time is 12:33. We will give 20 minutes for you to complete your lunch, and we will come out of recess at 12:50.